Fidel Castro, the charismatic and controversial leader of the Cuban Revolution, left an indelible mark on the history of the 20th century. Born on August 13, 1926, in Biran, a small town in eastern Cuba, Fidel Castro would grow up to become one of the most influential figures in modern history. His life was marked by resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to his revolutionary ideals. This 5,000-word biography will explore the life and legacy of Fidel Castro, tracing his journey from a young law student to the charismatic revolutionary leader who challenged the United States and transformed Cuba into a socialist state. Early life and education. Fidel Alejandro Castro was born into a relatively prosperous family in Biran, a sugar-producing region of Cuba. His father, Angel Castro, was a Spanish immigrant who became a successful farmer, while his mother, Lena Ruz, worked as a maid. Fidel was the third of 6 children in the family, and his upbringing was marked by a sense of privilege and a strong work ethic instilled by his parents. He attended various schools during his early years, including the La Salle boarding school in Santiago de Cuba and the Jesuit-run Colegio Dolores in Santiago. Fidel's early education laid the foundation for his later intellectual pursuits. He displayed a keen interest in history and politics, and his oratory skills began to emerge at a young age. His time at the University of Havana, where he studied law, marked a turning point in his life. It was here that he became involved in student politics and joined the Ortodox Party, a reformist political organization led by Eduardo Chibas. Chibas's fiery speeches and anti-corruption platform deeply influenced the young Castro. The struggle against Batista. Fidel's political awakening coincided with a turbulent period in Cuban history. Fulgencio Batista, a former army sergeant, seized power in a coup in 1952, suspending the constitution and establishing a dictatorship. Batista's regime was marked by corruption, censorship, and repression, which deeply troubled Fidel and many other Cubans. Fidel's response to this political crisis was to organize a group of rebels to overthrow Batista's government. On July 26, 1953, Fidel led an audacious attack on the Moncada barracks in Santiago de Cuba. The assault was a failure, resulting in the deaths of many rebels and the capture of Fidel and his brother Raul. Fidel was put on trial and delivered a stirring speech known as the "History Will Absolve Me" defense, in which he outlined his vision for a democratic and just Cuba. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but was released after serving less than 2 years, thanks to a general amnesty. Exile and revolution. Following his release, Fidel went into exile in Mexico, where he continued to plan the overthrow of the Batista regime. It was in Mexico that he met Ernesto Che Guevara, a fellow revolutionary and a key figure in the Cuban Revolution. Together with a small group of supporters, including his brother Raul, Fidel prepared for an armed uprising against Batista. On December 2, 1956, Fidel and his comrades, known as the 26th of July movement, in honor of their failed Moncada barracks attack, landed in Cuba on the yacht Granma. Their arrival in Cuba marked the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. However, they faced immense challenges, including a harsh environment, limited resources, and a larger and better-equipped enemy. Despite these obstacles, Fidel and his rebels waged a guerrilla war against Batista's forces, gaining support from the Cuban population and growing in number. The revolution gained momentum, and Fidel's charisma, leadership, and unwavering commitment to the cause played a crucial role in unifying the diverse groups and individuals supporting the revolution. By 1958, the rebels had won several key battles, and Batista's regime was crumbling. On January 1, 1959, Batista fled Cuba, and Fidel Castro, at the age of 32, declared victory and assumed power, consolidating power. Fidel Castro's rise to power marked the beginning of a new era for Cuba. He immediately set out to implement the reforms and changes he had promised during the revolution. The first years of Fidel's rule were marked by land reform, nationalization of foreign-owned businesses, and social programs aimed at improving the lives of ordinary Cubans. These policies resonated with many who had suffered under Batista's regime and won Fidel the support of the Cuban people. In 1960, Fidel Castro's government established diplomatic relations with the Soviet Union, marking the beginning of a close and complex relationship with the communist superpower. This alliance with the USSR would have far-reaching consequences for Cuba's future and contribute to the tense relations between Cuba and the United States. Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The early 1960s saw a series of confrontations between the United States and Cuba. One of the most notable events was the Bay of Pigs invasion in April 1961. This operation, organized and financed by the United States, aimed to overthrow Fidel Castro's government. However, it was a disastrous failure, as the Cuban military and the local population fiercely resisted the invading forces. The Bay of Pigs invasion not only solidified Fidel's power, but also deepened the rift between Cuba and the United States. The Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962 remains one of the most dangerous moments in the Cold War. The crisis was triggered when the United States discovered that the Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, leading to a tense standoff between the superpowers. Fidel Castro was not directly involved in the decision to allow Soviet missiles on Cuban soil, but he supported the move as a means of defense against potential U.S. aggression. The crisis was ultimately resolved through diplomatic negotiations, with the removal of the missiles in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade Cuba. Socialist transformation. During the early years of his rule, Fidel Castro implemented a series of radical social and economic reforms, including the nationalization of industries, the collectivization of agriculture, and the establishment of a single-party state. He declared Cuba a socialist state, aligning it with the Soviet bloc. These reforms led to significant changes in Cuban society, including increased access to education and healthcare, as well as land redistribution. The U.S. government's response to Fidel's reforms was hostile. The United States imposed economic sanctions and an embargo on Cuba, which further strained relations between the two countries. Fidel's decision to align with the Soviet Union and his close relationship with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev deepened the Cold War divisions in the Western Hemisphere. The Cuban Revolution also had a profound impact on Latin America and inspired other revolutionary movements across the continent. Che Guevara, one of Fidel's closest allies, played a pivotal role in spreading revolutionary ideas and insurgency throughout the region. Challenges and controversies. Fidel Castro's rule was marked by a mixture of accomplishments and controversies. While his government made significant strides in improving education and healthcare, it also faced criticisms over its handling of dissent, censorship, and human rights abuses. Political opposition was suppressed, and many Cubans who opposed the regime fled the country, leading to a significant Cuban diaspora, particularly in the United States. The Cuban economy faced challenges, especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, which resulted in the loss of a crucial economic and political ally. This period, known as the Special Period, was marked by severe economic hardship, food shortages, and a decline in living standards for many Cubans. Fidel's personality cult and the concentration of power in his hands were also subjects of criticism. He served as both the head of state and the head of the Communist Party, maintaining a tight grip on the country's political apparatus. Legacy in later years. Fidel Castro's influence extended far beyond the shores of Cuba. He was a global figure, admired by some as a revolutionary hero and vilified by others as a dictator. His charisma, determination, and unyielding commitment to his revolutionary ideals made him a symbol of resistance against U.S. imperialism and a champion of socialist principles. Fidel officially handed over the presidency to his brother Raul Castro in 2008 due to declining health. His health had been a subject of speculation for years, and in 2006, he underwent intestinal surgery, leading to increased concerns about the future of Cuba without its iconic leader. Fidel Castro passed away on November 25, 2016, at the age of 90. His death marked the end of an era in Cuban history and left a complex legacy. To some, he was a visionary leader who stood up against imperialism and fought for social justice. To others, he was a dictator who suppressed dissent and curtailed freedoms. Fidel Castro's life was a journey marked by extraordinary determination, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of his vision for Cuba. From his early years as a student activist to his rise as a revolutionary leader, Castro's influence was felt not only in Cuba but across the world. His legacy remains a subject of debate and analysis, encompassing both admiration and criticism. Regardless of one's perspective, Fidel Castro's impact on history is undeniable. He remains a polarizing and significant figure in the history of the 20th century, leaving an enduring mark on the geopolitics of the Americas and the world. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join our community. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this content with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome.